Inna Allah la yastahi an yadriba mathalan. No doubt about it, it is Allah, in fact, the one who's not embarrassed at all to give any example. Has He given examples yet? He has. 2 of them. He's given a couple of examples. And He says, by the way, I don't care what example. The point is, I'm not going to be embarrassed to teach you how I teach you. This is actually a very deep lesson in the Quran. A teacher is not there to impress you with how much he knows. A teacher's point is to make you understand. A preschool teacher will stand on his head, will juggle balls, will make funny faces, all of it to do what? To teach the student. You know, in normal speech, you judge the intelligence of a speaker by what? By their speech. You judge the intelligence of a speaker by their speech. Can you judge the intelligence of a preschool teacher by their speech? You can maybe judge their teaching ability, but they may know a lot more than they're letting on, because they're speaking at the level of the child. Quran is the perfect speech of Allah, but in the end it's teaching. This is a glimpse of Allah's wisdom. He's watered it way down so us weak human beings can understand. This perfect word of Allah that we have, in it He will give examples so that you and I, the dumb ones on this earth, can get something. Because He knows way more. And did He start with that already, that He knows way more? Where did He start with that? Alif Lam Mim. He knows way more. But He's going to give us what we can handle. And you know what? When somebody gives an example like that, you might say, oh my God, look at the kind of example. He's so wise, he couldn't think of a better example. He's giving that example not because it's good for him, but it's good for you. It's for you that He gave that example, and He's not embarrassed to help His creation. He's not embarrassed to serve that purpose, that He's going to help, by His mercy, help His creation understand. So He'll give the examples. Human beings should be grateful that Allah gives us this Quran in a language and in a way that we can understand. On top of that, He goes further, He says, وَلَقَدْ يَسَّرْنَا الْقُرْآنَ. We made the Quran easy. You think, you've heard, you've listened to professors and knowledgeable people, and sometimes the more knowledgeable they get, the more complicated they get. And when they get really complicated, you don't understand a word they're saying. I mean, I've heard Islamic lectures where I didn't understand anything. I mean anything. Nothing. Because they were way way up there. There's sometimes you'll take a philosophy class, a law class, an advanced biology, microbiology class, and you won't understand anything. The more someone knows, the more complicated they get. You think Allah can be compared to that? SubhanAllah, the one who knows everything. And yet He clarified and simplified to the point where we can understand. That's a huge mercy from Allah. So He says here, Inna Allah la yastahi. Allah is not embarrassed at all. We learn from that sunnah of Allah that if you and I are ever going to be teachers, you shouldn't feel inhibited. You're not there to impress students. You're there to teach. A lot of times, I argue all the time, that's the difference between a scholar and a teacher. A scholar can say a lot, but people won't get it. A teacher comes down to the level of the people. He may even be teaching calculus and make it feel like it's preschool math. That's his job. That's the job of a teacher. A good teacher, as good as he is judged by how easy can he make the subject. How much can he dumb it down? How much can he water it down that people can process it? Allah gave us this Quran so that we can learn. Allah says, وَتِلْكَ الْأَمْثَالُ نَضْرِبُهَا لِلنَّاسِ وَمَا يَعْقِلُهَا إِلَّا الْعَالِمُونَ. Those are the examples we strike for people. We gave this example for who? For linnasi, for people. وَمَا يَعْقِلُهَا إِلَّا الْعَالِمُونَ. Nobody understands them except those who actually have knowledge. In other words, those who have a little knowledge can at least appreciate what Allah is saying. So now with that background in mind, Allah is not embarrassed to give an example. Any example. Then ataf bayan, ba'udatan, even if it be a mosquito, فَمَا فَوْقَهَا, or even something way above and beyond that, meaning even something more insignificant, something smaller, tinier, or something sitting on top of a mosquito. That doesn't matter to Allah. What matters is He'll teach a lesson of guidance. فَأَمَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا. Then as far as those who have iman are concerned, what's their response? فَيَعْلَمُونَ أَنَّهُ الْحَقُّ مِنْ رَبِّهِمْ. Then they already know that this is the truth from their master. In my introduction to the Quran I said, one of the most essential attitudes in successful learning of Quran is intellectual humility. You have to come to terms with the fact that Allah knows and I don't. Whether you understand or not, and sometimes examples will be like that, there'll be examples you won't understand, or you'll try to understand. At the end of it, you'll have to say, Allahu A'lam. You have to know, no matter what, it is the truth from my master. أَنَّهُ الْحَقُّ مِنْ رَبِّهِمْ وَأَمَّا الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا فَيَقُولُونَ مَاذَا أَرَادَ اللَّهُ بِهَذَا مَثَلًا. And those who disbelieve will say, what does Allah intend by giving this as an example? This is tamyiz. هَذَا مَثَلًا. لم يقل هَذَا الْمَثَل. It's not هَذَا الْمَثَل, this example. Translations that say that are off. If they say, what does Allah mean by this example? No. What does Allah mean by giving this as an example? There's a huge difference, guys. If you say, what does Allah mean by this example? That's a legitimate question. That can be asked by a genuine person. What does Allah mean by this example? We should be asking that question. But the hypocrite says, those who disbelieve say, what does he mean by this? Why would he give this as an example? They're criticizing or being condescending to the idea of the example itself. That's what Allah is highlighting. They have an arrogant attitude when they approach this book. And then Allah responds, يُضِلُّ بِهِ كَثِيرًا. He misguides by means of it many. He misguides by means of, now the it could be the entire Quran, or it could be the example Allah gives. In Surah Al-Hajj, when I saw, to me, tafsir of this ayah is that Nodeki article, an Orientalist article on the example from Surah Al-Hajj. When we get to Surah Al-Hajj, I'll share with you. He wrote an entire paper on how the example in the Quran doesn't make any sense. A criticism, basically his article should have been titled, ماذا أراد الله بهذا مثلا. That's what the title of his article should have been, right? And Allah adds, يُضِلُّ بِهِ كَثِيرًا. He misguides with it many. Quran is guidance, not for everybody. Guidance for who? لِلْمُتَّقِينَ الَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ. That's been identified already. There are a lot of people that are going to read it, they're going to find misguidance in it. They're going to find stuff to quote and hate more. They're going to read it and it's going to increase them. يَزِيدُهُمْ نُفُورًا. It will increase them in hatred. The more they read Quran, the more they hate it. They make videos about it on YouTube. They get millions of hits. I don't know why Muslims are so obsessed with that stuff, by the way. You just go find those videos. If you watch this, you won't be a Muslim anymore. Like, oh yeah? And you sit there and watch. And then the next one you'll watch. Why don't you spend your time learning something about Allah's book than listening to dogs bark? وَيُضِلُّ بِهِ كَثِيرًا وَيَهْدِي بِهِ كَثِيرًا. And misguides many by means of it itself. وَمَا يُضِلُّ بِهِ إِلَّا الْفَاسِقِينَ. And he doesn't misguide anyone except those who are inherently corrupt. Inherent corruption has been identified in this ayah as criticism. What does Allah mean by this example? That is corruption. Corruption is that of the ego. Corruption is that of not being humble. That's real corruption. And when people come with that to the Quran, then they will only be misled. And Allah says, I will misguide them. I will misguide them because they deserve it. And then you could argue, well, why would Allah misguide someone? Allah adds, yes, I will misguide many. And I'll tell you who I misguide. Al-Fasiqeen. The inherently corrupt. They deserve it. الَّذِينَ يَنْقُضُونَ عَهْدَ اللَّهِ. Those who violate the promise of Allah. And before I go further, it should be said, Fasiq. I translated as corrupt. Fasid also got translated as corrupt. We should try to understand the difference between them. Al-Fa'ra al-Fuwaysiqa. They say Al-Fa'ratu al-Fuwaysiqa. One of the names of the rat is Al-Fuwaysiqa. Weird word. They call it that because Fasaqa means tajawaza an haddin. Cross a border. When a rat comes out of its hole and goes where it's not supposed to, they call it Fuwaysiqa. From fisq. Crossing a line. Fasiq crosses a line they're not supposed to cross. There's a line in your attitude you're not supposed to cross towards the Quran. When you do, you no longer get guidance from it. You crossed a line. You're like that rat that came out of his hole and he shouldn't have. You got to stay in your place. Okay? So this criticism of Quran, or feeling that you're intellectually capable of critiquing the Quran, in and of itself is the antithesis of faith, is guaranteeing one misguidance. الَّذِينَ يَنْقُضُونَ عَهْدَ اللَّهِ, those who violate the promise of Allah, مِنْ بَعْدِ مِيثَاقِهِ, much after it was taken. The min here implies that this contract, this covenant was taken a long time ago. So what promise is this? Allah describes this in Surah Al-A'raf. The promise was taken with us way back when we were created, and Allah asked us if He's our master or not. And we all said, Bala shahidna. Of course, we testify, we bear witness. The fasiqun violate that promise. Because if we have testified that He's our master, that makes us slave. And if we're a slave is by definition humble and doesn't question the master. And when someone questions the example in the Quran, they're questioning the master. So they violated that contract. وَيَقْطَعُونَ مَا أَمَرَ اللَّهُ بِهِ أَنْ يُوصَلَ, and they cut apart what Allah has commanded to keep together. I'd like you to try and remember that. They cut apart what Allah has commanded to keep together. This is a very deep statement in the Quran. Some of its manifestations we're going to find later on, because as soon after this we're going to go into the story of Adam alayhi salam. It's going to jump right into the story of Adam alayhi salam. So then we'll see, how this materializes. But for now, understand that there are some things Allah commands that they should stay together. And a munafiq takes them and makes them apart. Let me give you some examples of that. Allah put our body and our soul together, yes? There are needs of the body and there are needs of the soul. They should be kept together. There are some people who concern themselves with spirituality at the expense of the natural needs of their body. Allah commanded they should stay together. There should be a harmony between them. Allah commanded there should be individual concern and communal concern. Our religion makes us worry about ourselves and worry about a society. Some people become entirely concerned with community, others entirely with the individual. They're supposed to stay together. Another easy manifestation of this is some people say, I take the Quran seriously, the messenger, sunnah and stuff, not that important. The Quran and the sunnah are supposed to stay together, and they take them apart. Then you're supposed to believe in all the prophets and messengers. لَا نُفَرِّقُ بَيْنَ أَحَدٍ مِّنْهُمْ. We make no distinction between any one of them. And what do some people do? They take some messengers and they leave the rest off. They cut apart what is supposed to stay together. Same way some people take some parts of the book seriously and don't take other parts of the book seriously. أَفَتُؤْمِنُونَ بِبَعْضِ الْكِتَابِ وَتَكْفُرُونَ بِبَعْضٍ. You take something together that's supposed to be together and you break it apart. الَّذِينَ جَعَلُوا الْقُرْآنَ عِضِينَ. They took the Quran and tore it to shreds. They tore it to pieces. These are all manifestations of cutting apart what Allah has commanded to keep together. Last easy example, but the big one I'm holding off until we get to Adam alayhi salam, is family ties. Allah has commanded that you keep family ties together. Allah has commanded that we maintain relationships of kin, brothers, sisters, husband, wife, children, parents, uncles. And you don't like them, so you don't call them. Allah commanded that these things should be kept together. Because when they're not kept together, then وَيُفْسِدُونَ فِي الْأَرْضِ, then corruption happens in the earth. When the things that are supposed to be kept together are no longer kept together, then it's easy to cause corruption in the earth. Look at all the neighborhoods that have the highest crime. You'll notice they also have the most broken families. Something that's supposed to be kept together is not kept together, and what is the natural result? All kinds of crime in society. There's supposed to be individual concern and collective concern. What does capitalism do by definition? Collective concern or individual concern? Yeah, individual concern. So you'll have a city like Las Vegas, Nevada, and the state of Nevada. You're going to have a lot of capitalism. Individual concern, yes? And you're going to have the highest suicide rate. You're going to have you know how many cardiologists move to Nevada because it's very high paying there? Because a lot of people have heart attacks. I wonder why. I wonder why they have so much heart attacks and suicides. Why they have the most houses of worship per capita in the United States. It's no wonder. A society that's falling apart. Why? Because something that's supposed to be kept together is cut apart. But again, one of the most important manifestations of this, I will hold off inshallah ta'ala until our next session. We'll stop here. Barakallahu li wa lakum fil Qur'an al-Hakim wa nafa'ni wa iyyakum bil ayati wa dhikr al-Hakim.